So I was browsing the Kerbals Space Program subreddit the other day, and I came across this rather heartbreaking post by Zaukonig, an ambitious Kerbanaut that decided to send a spaceplane to one of the Mun's poles. Sadly, however, the spaceplane crashed, and only one of the Kerbals managed to bail before the spaceplane met its doom. So, a rescue mission was naturally launched. Here it is on the launch pad, and here it is on the Mun. Yes, the landing failed on the first attempt, and the second attempt went worse. So we're left with kind of two Kerbals stranded on the Mun. And I have acquired the save file. Here it is. Unfortunately, because of the I couldn't get the mods to work, so the actual spacecraft is not here. But the two Kerbals are, and they are now stranded on the Mun with no hope of rescue. Unless...
On a lonely planet slowly spinning its way to damnation, amid the incompetence and unpreparedness of lesser space programs, one team stands resilient against the herds, putting their lives on the line to aid those who were previously unaware of the quick save option. Yes, it's the incredible adventures of Jebediah and his crack team of Kerbanauts. They are the Blunderbirds, saving the Kerbin race one stranded explorer at a time.
That's right, it is time for another Blunderbirds episode. A lot of people got worried that the Stranded was going to replace the Blunderbirds, and not the case. I was so moved by this player's attempt at trying to rescue their Kerbals. I thought, you know what? You've put in a valiant effort. I'm going to give you a hand there. Now, whilst I do this build, I'm going to quickly address something that the eagle-eyed among you might spot, and that is I've got a lot of non-stock parts in my... list of components on the build menu on the left there, and that's because this particular user was running a few parts mods. I think it was Restock Plus and Kerbal Atomics, I think were the two, and in order to load the stranded craft that was stuck on the surface of the Mun, I needed to have the same mods installed, and unfortunately it was all to no avail. For whatever reason, the stranded craft just wouldn't load at all. So while you can see lots of parts mods installed on this version of Kerbal Space Program, I'm not using any parts mods to construct this vehicle, which you can see is rapidly nearing completion. I thought it'd be kind of fun to build some sort of big truck that can traverse the polar region of the Mun. The Mun's poles are a very interesting place and very underrated as a destination to visit in Kerbal Space Program, in my opinion. They're very, very treacherous. They've got some really interesting terrain, really steep, really big. So I thought, let's not land like a lander in that region, because clearly it's very difficult to do so. Let's bring a rover that can just drive from the landing site to the stranded craft. Now I'm just encapsulating the vehicle in a fairing, and then I'm going to build a rocket underneath. I figured we could just skip ahead to the launch though, because you know what rocket building looks like, right? Oh, I always like to just pause the old commentary just to allow the sound of the launch of this rocket be heard. Rockets need to be heard, guys. So here we are, launching a first stage there, or the core stage, I should say. So same thing. Very SLS, right? It's orange. It's got the SLS RS-25 boat tail cluster thing at the bottom. Kind of fitting, because yesterday for me the SLS rocket launched. Finally, I know, right? It was meant to launch in 2016, so we're 1 month away from 6 years overdue, but it launched nonetheless, and I was reminded of this fact by the fact that I talked about the sound of this launch. And yeah, the SLS launch, kind of disappointing that it happened in the night, so you couldn't really see a lot after it cleared the launch pad. But the sound on NASA's official live stream, it was visceral. It was so thunderous. It must have been amazing to be there in person. But I like to think that at least, while this launch footage doesn't, sound as good as the SLS launch, it is a bit more visible. Not just because I'm launching in daytime. Come on, NASA, you should have thought that. Don't launch at night. No one can see. I guess if you launch at night, you can see space more easily. So it was easier to steer the rocket, right? I'm sure that was the reason. But yeah, you can see the rocket. I launched in the daytime, but it's also easier to see because if you look at the video resolution, which takes 15 clicks now, I think, on mobile, but look at the video resolution. If this has worked, this is a big if, me and technology, but if this has worked, this should be my first ever 4K video. I've invested in some stuff for Kerbal Space Program 2 to really get my content out there. We need at least up the visual quality. So I've got a couple of Samsung Odyssey G7 4K monitors. They're really good. They're HDR, they're 144 Hz IPS, 4K, 28 inches, got 2 of them. Oh, it's beautiful. Has been a bit of hassle though, to be honest. I think I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I would rather still be on 1440p, to be honest. If I wasn't a YouTuber, I wouldn't have bought these monitors because 4K is a bit ridiculous on 28 inches. Like, yeah, text is a bit sharper, but like the UI scaling on so many of my programs has been completely messed up. Like Sony Vegas, I usually edit on a pirated version of Sony Vegas 13 because I got the new version. I didn't really like it, so I just went back to the one I was used to that I pirated when I was a teenager. But now I've been forced to go to the new version because Sony Vegas 13 just cannot import half the 4K footage I record, and it just doesn't scale to 4K screens at all, I find. So yeah, I'm on a new version of Sony Vegas now. It's not Sony Vegas, it's Magic FX Vegas. I don't know. It's not Sony Vegas, it's just Vegas, but you know me. I'm probably going to keep calling it Sony Vegas because I'm a dinosaur and can't cope with change, you know? So speaking of change, we are changing our sphere of influence. Tenuous segue. We're putting ourselves on a Mun trajectory, is what I'm saying. And I can tell this. I can see this because the footage is playing back really, really nicely for me in my preview window because I learned about video proxies in Vegas Pro. 4K footage really plays back very, very slowly in the video preview window of the editor, but you can have Sony Vegas just generate a proxy video file. So basically, it's like it just converts the file into a lower quality video just for the purposes of editing. And then when you press render, it switches the file out for the original 4K footage and renders it to look beautiful. It means it's much easier to work with when editing, and that's it. That's the only benefit. And that worked really well for all of the files I made for the video until I got into a Mun parking orbit. And then I tried a couple of times to generate a video proxy, and Sony Vegas just wouldn't. I said Sony Vegas, didn't I? And Vegas just would not play ball. I could not create a proxy. It kept saying proxy failed, blah, blah, blah. Didn't work. So I don't know. I'll tell you when. I'm like, oh, now the footage has gone down to 1 FPS. And that's because So I've tried my best to edit it down to an acceptable speed based on basically a PowerPoint presentation speed of playback, and hopefully it's not too nauseating and unwatchable. I have now entered that, so the clarity of the visuals has suddenly jumped up, but I'm getting like 1 frame per minute now. So hopefully I'm just gonna have to just talk about something else, and I'll catch brief updates on the preview models every now and then of key moments, and I hope that my editing worked and it's the footage is still comprehensible, I guess would be the word. Now here you can see the poles below me, and you can see what I mean. They are a very visually striking region on the Mun, very mountainous, very treacherous, so that's why I decided to go with a Rover for this, because I really wasn't sure. I mean, I could have just like gone to the tracking station and switched to the Kerbals that are stranded and just assess the environment they're in and make a decision about how to design the lander from there, but that would require forward thinking, and I thought, you know what, it's probably in a bit of a tricky spot given that this person has now crashed 3 times in this region. Let's go use a lander to land somewhere flat and safe, and then we drive a Rover over to the spot where the stranded Kerbals are. And here you can see me landing. And yeah, this was a bit of a beefy old Rover design, so I wasn't really sure how to gracefully integrate it into a lander. So I thought, have it just sit on top of the lander like this, and then it's got some rocket engines that it can use to fly away, and that it's got some like VTOL, like Harrier jump jet placement style engines on the bottom to come to a nice, safe, practical landing. And I think you'll agree, this was a very safe approach, and I think NASA are definitely taking notes. How many notes is that? That's 2, right? You know, do this when deploying rovers and launch all your rockets in the daytime so we can all see it more easily. I'm just a great source of help for NASA. NASA, hit me up. If you want any advice, then tweet at me, and I will probably miss the notification because I miss a lot. Anyway, an unexpected benefit of having those retro rockets on this truck is that they serve as a little bit of a NOS boost, like a nitro boost sort of thing, which was very, very helpful for a couple of reasons. And that is because, first of all, the I don't know if you can really see in the footage, because again, I can't really tell now what's happening on screen, but I recall when I played this and recorded it for the first time, the truck was very, very slippy and slidey, and if you've ever built a Rover in Kerbal Space Program, you know what I mean. They act more like roller skates, not roller skates, ice skates, and very hard to control. They slip and slide, and yeah, they're terrible, our wheels in Kerbal Space Program. Speaking of terribleness, I had a bit of an oops just then, but I inspected the craft. Didn't look like we lost anything important, so I decided to just press on, not bother reloading a quick save, and continue on our mission to the stranded Kerbals. Now, as I was saying, yeah, so the Rover slides about. It's like it's driving on ice constantly. It's very hard to keep it controlled, which is made a lot worse by the fact that I'm running the amazing Parallax 2 mod. Brilliant mod. If Rovers were really easy to build and controlled like real cars, it would be fine. But it's really hard to control the direction of your Rover to the accuracy that you would need to avoid the Parallax 2.0 rocks. As you can probably tell, they have collision meshes, so they pose an actual hazard, not like most of the stock ground scatter in stock Kerbal Space Program, where a lot of it has no collision mesh. Now, you can disable the collision mesh for the Parallax 2 mod, but where's the fun in that? So, yeah, I was trying to be, had to be a little bit cautious when driving this. Now, and going back to how I got onto this little subject, the retro rockets are really, really good for helping to avoid crashing into rocks. I've been playing a lot of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered recently. Tangent now. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, brilliant game. I never really played it because I had a GameCube during the PS2, Xbox GameCube era, and I don't know if it might have been on GameCube to be fair, but I seem to remember it being a PS2 game, and I didn't play those sorts of games when I was in my GameCube phase. I was playing, I remember playing Mario Party, Sonic Adventure 2, what a game. Yeah, I was playing games like that. I didn't really play Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, but then I had a PlayStation 3 later on in life, and I bought Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and it was a brilliant game, very, very good game, very fun, and I bought it on sale on PS4, the remastered version, and I've been playing it a lot, and driving in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, it's not very realistic. Like, when I'm playing something like Gran Turismo or Forza, I drive as if I'm driving a real car. In Need for Speed, that doesn't really work. The car will just spin out because it's designed to be able to the cars can just corner at like 200 miles an hour. So I find that I just when I'm driving in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, I'll literally brake, the car will then start to spin, and then once the spin, like the nose of the car is pointing the way I want it to go, I'll slam on the nitrous button and just blast forward, and that's how I take corners. I don't know if this is just me. It might be like this is what everyone does, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing recently. So that's muscle memory is still sort of ingrained into me. So when I was driving this car around and it started sliding, I would then hit Z on those retro rockets and, make it propel it forwards in the right direction, and that's kind of the driving strategy I had. So NASA, there you go. Point number 3. When you launch Perseverance 2, add nitros to it, right? Worked in Need for Speed, what am I trying to say? It worked in Fast and Furious 9. What a film. I should recreate that, shouldn't I? This is minor spoilers for Fast and Furious 9. You can't really spoil Fast and Furious, can you? I mean, it's quite funny how that series... I heard someone recently say that Fast and Furious is basically the Saints Row of films, where it started off serious. It was always a bit, self-aware. But the first film was literally just about trying to steal DVDs. And then the latest film, they literally drove a car to space. They just went there, and it was goofy, and I loved it. They had this, I think it was a Pontiac Firebird strapped to the top of some American military cargo jet, and there were some rocket motors on the side of this Pontiac. It launched off the cargo plane, fired its rocket motors, and just flew to space. And they got to space, and then they steered the car in space with a steering wheel and the gas and brake pedals, and it was beautiful. I wept, I cried. I was stunned that happened, but I love it. I love the Fast and Furious movies for that. It's brave is the word I would use to describe it. You talk about all these social movement films with important messages, and people say it's very brave, but I say no. Fast and Furious 9 launched a car to space and then steered the car in space, like floating in the vacuum of space with a steering wheel. And that is true Kino bravery, if you ask me. So they are NASA, if you want to. But yeah, is there anything else I need to talk about? Like I say, it's hard to think of poignant things to say in the moment, talking about the footage very specifically, because it doesn't really play back very well because the video proxy didn't work. It's a thing I'm working on. This is one of the reasons why I'm not saying that this is like an easy mission or a non-impressive mission or anything, but I wasn't sure if this was going to work, like if my 4K capture would just corrupt or it just wouldn't be usable at all, because I had loads of problems with these monitors when I first got them, like with my capture software. Obviously, Monday last week, I think, Booster 7, Space This Week now stuff, Booster 7 down at Starbase Boca Chica, conducted a 14-engine static fire. So I had to hop on Lab Padre's live stream and do a capture of the footage. And I used NVIDIA Shadowplay, just made YouTube full screen, pressed record, and recorded it. And the footage came out super weird. It wasn't recognizable by either my pirated copy of Sony Vegas or my newer copy of Vegas Pro, and VLC struggled to play it back as well. And when VLC struggles to play the video, it's probably not a video file, but it was. So I spent ages. It was like literally 3 hours of troubleshooting, and I realized these monitors have got, they're HDR monitors, and Windows HDR was on by default, and disabling Windows HDR fixed the issue. And so that's where, but then I just keep on running into a few just little things, like, Photoshop just doesn't work in 4K for me. Like, the UI scaling didn't work. I had to, like, Google that. Then just a lot of software stopped working when I transitioned from 1440p to 4K, and I had to figure out this, that, and the other for my software. And I do still prefer Vegas. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm used to Vegas 13, but I prefer using Sony Vegas 13 compared to the newer versions of the program. And so for Space This Week, which is a 1080p show, I want to carry on using that. But it just doesn't really scale very well. Like, I can get the UI of the program working nicely on the main monitor, and then usually I have my second monitor to be a full screen preview window, and that doesn't scale well. It's all like zoomed in and doesn't really work. So yeah, it's these are all like such like first world problems, aren't they? The smallest violin in the world is currently playing right now in the background. But yeah, as I see, PowerPoint has updated and we are back at the lander. Did I talk about anything about this rover at all that I think I should have talked about? I don't think, it's fine. I think you guys got the gist of what the rover was. I did think about adding like a little ambulance interior to this rover, but I decided not to because I've already done the whole ambulance shtick thing. It is one of my most popular videos, that one, so maybe this was a bad call, but I thought you guys know, I thought it would just be fine having it as a box truck sort of thing. And yeah, I see now that we are on the way. No audio. I know I mentioned this in my last KSP video, and a lot of kind folk have got in touch. Thank you. They're always apologizing. I'm so sorry for getting like spamming your inbox and all this, but I've got the fix. And thank you. I have got all of your messages saved on a Word document. I don't remember where I saved it, but I've got it saved somewhere, and I can probably find it if I try and look for it. Of all the solutions, I haven't got around to it. I've got a lot on. I've got a lot of stuff on. I've been having to deal with the stress of having nice new luxury premium monitors. I know. Imagine that. It's very, very difficult, guys. But a lot of other things as well. Like I'm doing my master's module. This was a stressful week, guys. I got my first assignment marks back. I did well. I got a distinction, so that's good. But it was a stressful build-up, and yeah, it was a stressful assignment as well. But I'm glad that's over, and I got a good mark, so that should act as a good buffer for when I probably do not so well in the exam, which is next month. And I still don't really know what it's gonna be about. Like, it's just about medicines, so like eye drops, and so I'm just having to revise everything I know about eye drops, and hopefully that's gonna be enough. Hopefully it will be. We will have to just wait and see. But I guess I was kind of, this whole commentary has been very non-serious, right? But I did mention that this is my first foray into 4K content. Do let me know how it came out. If you're watching this on a 4K screen, or, you know, just, I guess 4K on YouTube is a higher bitrate, so I would have thought the 4K version of a YouTube video still looks better than its lower resolution counterparts on a non-4K screen. I'm not like some tech guru though, so I don't know. But yeah, let me know. And hey, I was talking about upgrades I've made for KSP2. It's not just 4K monitors. It's a new CPU. I've got a new motherboard. Not my choosing that. That was the whole blue screen of death thing that I've talked about in other commentaries before, so I won't rehash that. But I also got an RTX 4090. And it's still, 3 weeks later, still sitting in its box because I've been scared it's going to catch fire. So I ordered a Corsair cable for it that apparently won't melt. And I'm still waiting for that to arrive. However, Gamers Nexus Tech Jesus dropped a video today. He got like melted graphics card adapters and x-rayed them, cross-sectioned them, put them through a mass spectrometer, and was able to figure out that basically the NVIDIA cables that are melting and catching fire, that's almost always due to user error, which is great, because if it's due to user error, I am 100% guaranteed to be victim to the melting cable saga, because I'm not the most competent when it comes to technology. I have nothing else to add. That was it. But hey, there is a list of names on screen, my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for supporting this content, guys. I've got to be quick now because I'm running out of time. But there are 2 cards on screen to videos I've made, including a Planet Coaster video. Guys, watch that. No one watches them, but I think they're very good, in my opinion. Thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.